We're back on the Ringer NFL show. Other game we all said we got to have eyes on this game was Ravens Commanders, which again, before the season, who would have thought Ravens Commanders in week 6? What do you mean you all have to have eyes on that game? Ravens win this football game 30-23. I want to start with Baltimore, and I can get us started with the temperature check here. I think this is the best Lamar Jackson has ever played, which is a crazy thing to say about a guy who's won 2 MVPs. I think he's easily the MVP of the league through 6 weeks. I wouldn't think twice if I don't get a ballot. Someone want to get me a ballot. If I had a ballot, I would have Lamar on there. What they did today, and I know it's the Commanders defense. They're stringing together 90-yard drives like it's a Wednesday practice or something. I mean, he could not miss today. They had 8 possessions. They scored on 6 of them. They had 28 first down, 484 yards. He's just dicing opponents up from the pocket, 20 for 26 for 323 yards. I mean, this Ravens offense, like if you were thinking the moves they've made over the last 2 seasons here, Todd Monken was one of them, and then Derrick Henry this offseason. If you were thinking of like the best case scenario, I think you pretty much saw that today, where teams do not want to tackle Derrick Henry. As the game goes on, go watch those Commanders defenders. He has 132 yards. Zay Flowers was terrific in this game. Rashad Bateman had big catches in this game. Mark Andrews looked more like Mark Andrews in this game. Finally, like it's all coming together. Lamar Jackson right now is 3rd in EPA per pass play, and he's 8th in the entire NFL in rushing yards. These are silly numbers, and it's so funny thinking back to when they were 0-2. Now it's like this season couldn't be going any better for them, specifically offensively. So I think I don't want to get bored with like how well Lamar Jackson is playing, Diante, because what he did today, and the margin for error wasn't great. We'll get to the Commanders in a minute, but like if they aren't as sharp as they were today offensively, they might lose that game. But they just, every time the Commanders had something, they came back and had a scoring drive.
And it was the best piece of it to me watching Lamar the last 2 weeks is against Cincinnati. You saw him respond to pressure looks very well, exotic looks very well. Washington didn't throw exotic looks at him as much as just a lot of tight coverage, right? And to me, my biggest question mark for this offense is there going to be an answer with getting guys open downfield when you don't have a go-to X receiver type that goes out and wins on the boundary when you see teams that want to play tight coverage? And today was a great step in the right direction. Obviously, the Commander secondary isn't going to inspire a lot of confidence in relation to the rest of the league. But I do like the fact that Rashad Bateman was able to get loose in a way that, earlier in the year, I was texting buddies of mine like, hey, man, what's it going to take for this thing to work between Bateman and Lamar? Right. And I think that now we're starting to see some hints at what he can be as that X receiver. You see Zay Flowers working in the middle of the field. And I think that Todd Monken at this stage now has a different level of confidence and understanding at what Lamar does well in the pocket. And you really see them leaning on the things that he does best, which is working the middle of field from the pocket. He has always been underrated, I think, in that facet of his game throughout his career. And this was another great opportunity for people to watch what he can do when he's in full command. And like you said, this year has probably been the best that I've ever seen him play. And it would be hard to be better than he was in 2019.
He's on pace for 4,300 passing yards and 1,100 rush yards. Like we've never seen numbers like that. We've never seen numbers like that. If he doesn't win MVP, it's because we're tired of voting for him for MVP. It would be his 3rd MVP in like his last 4 fully healthy seasons. I think maybe his last 3 fully healthy seasons. He wins MVP every time he plays a full season. And like this, the one concern is still the offensive line, because we saw what that did to the team over the first 2 weeks, and we saw it against teams that can capitalize on those issues. We haven't really seen them play another team like that. So I don't know what's going to happen when this offense isn't playing on the front foot like it did today in Washington. Like you said, Sheil, like it did whatever it wanted, just marched down the field. The only time it really lost the ball was when they couldn't hold on to it. Mark Andrews, a ball bounces off his hands, gets intercepted. There was a botched snap that kind of killed the drive and made them settle for 3. But other than that, up and down the field, they average over 3 points per possession, just 9 drives in this one, and they get 30 points off it. Just 1 total turnover for the entire game. This was like a well-played game on both sides of the ball, and that's what stood out to me, was just how competitive this game was in a rivalry that we really don't have any memories from, even though there should be more hate, because there's certainly a lot of hate between the Washington and Baltimore sports fans. I've been around it my whole life. There's definitely some resentment there. And I think over the next decade, we could see this rivalry kind of take off if these two quarterbacks are what we think they will be. Obviously, Lamar is already there, but Jayden Daniels, I thought this was maybe his most impressive and meaningful performance to date.
Yeah, speak on that, because I was going to take it there next. So go ahead, expand on that. He was 20 for 35 for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think I agree with you, but I want to hear what you have to say about it first.
Yeah. We talked about this last week. We hadn't really seen the offense play left-handed yet. We hadn't seen a defense take away their early down stuff and force them to play on 3rd and long. And that happened in this game. Like the Commanders couldn't run the football. They had 0 explosive plays in the run game for the first time all year. They had a 0% success rate running the ball in the red zone, which, stalls out a bunch of drives. They couldn't run, and they were forcing Jayden Daniels to play from the pocket. He only had 4 scrambles in this game. It was his lowest scramble rate all season long, and the pass game was still productive, at least when they weren't pressured. Like, Daniels had his worst game under pressure in this one because the Ravens were able to keep him in the pocket, but he moved the ball. Whenever Washington needed him to make a throw, he made the throw. The throw was on target. It gave the receiver a chance. I think he completed nearly 70% of his passes for the 4th time this season. And it felt like he could have completed more because every throw gave his receiver a chance. It was a good performance. Like, I know it's a tough loss for Washington and you really wanted that like signature win for the program, but God, I would be feeling really good about this game. I would not be feeling good about that defense though, because the Ravens just like did the same thing over and over again. I don't know how many in-breaking routes the Ravens caught in this game, but it just seemed like the middle of the field was a free-for-all, and Dan Quinn like never adjusted. It's hard to adjust when it's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield, but you got to do something, man.
Yeah, that's why I almost give everybody like a mulligan against the Ravens. I don't know what the right answer is, especially with their personnel. I'm with you. Try different stuff, but
have Chris Jones.
Max Crosby. Yeah, right. Yeah, if you have guys up front who can just dominate, that's one. But man, I'm with you with Jayden Daniels. I thought he was fantastic in this game. Like they ran 18 times for 52 yards, so you couldn't run the ball. You're playing from behind. You're facing a team that if you like make mistakes, they're just gonna run away with it. Your defense couldn't get a stop. And they're just in that game the entire time, going back and forth. I thought he was making throws on the move. He's making high degree of difficulty throws. He's a really smart player. Like he like dirted the ball. I think it was the end of the first half, I want to say. And Romo had a good call out. Like with the clock where it is right now, the guy was wide open, but he's like, you complete that pass and all of a sudden you have to use a timeout or time is ticking. Like it seems to be processing, knowing game situation really, really quickly. I'm with you. I wrote the same thing down. I would feel great after this loss if I was a Commanders fan. Like, wait, our quarterback can do that on the road against a team that's playing as well as any team in the NFL right now. And I just look at the box score every week, and this is no shade to any of these players. But yes, Terry McLaurin is a very good wide receiver. The other leading target getters for the Washington Commanders, Noah Brown, Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, Olamide Zaccheaus. These were all players who were available for very low, reasonable salaries this offseason. This is who he's working with, and he's first in the NFL in EPA per pass play. Last 2 weeks, he goes up against Jim Schwartz and then this Ravens defense. And the game, Diante has not looked like, it doesn't look like stuff's moving too fast for him. It doesn't look like the stage is too big for him. I hate to use the cliches of like calm and poised, but man, I get excited every time I've watched him this season.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago when you were saying like, hey, if this keeps up, Jayden Daniels has got to be in the MVP conversation, and we were offering pushback. A lot of that was because I wanted to see how he would react when game script was not in his favor, when the down and distance situations was not in his favor. And I'm blown away that we did not see any bad habits crop up. The fact that he has been as good with his ball security as he's been under pressure has probably been the biggest revelation to this point. Outside of a bad interception against Cleveland last week, I mean, even being under pressure today, knowing that you've got a lot of zone coverage, a lot of changing looks on the back end, the fact that he did stay poised, played calm, played as quickly as he could, trying to move through his progressions. I thought that for as little scrambling as we did see, I thought that he was wise with how he managed the pocket and tried to avoid making bad situations worse. I have nothing negative to say about him. I think if there's one thing to note, and this is something that I've been kind of looking at since week 2 when they really started heating up, this is the number one offense in passing EPA in the open field. And for people who don't understand field zones, that's basically like from the -11 to the +25, right, is what you would consider the open field. They're the number one offense in passing EPA in that situation. But once you get into the red zone, they're 21st in EPA per dropback, 21st in completion percentage at 51%, and they're 19th in success rate in the passing game at 40%. I don't think that that's totally a reflection on Daniels. I think that that speaks to some of the things that Steven called out on our Friday show about this offense giving him a lot of easy buttons when you've got the whole field in front of you, and some of Cliff Kingsbury's issues that come up when teams are able to play a little bit tighter, when you're going to see a little bit more pressure, teams are going to play a little bit more aggressively. But I do think for Daniels, and this is something to look at that I'm interested to see how he responds to over this middle stretch of the season, is how does he use his legs in those situations? Because Washington did leave some points on the field today against Baltimore. There was a field goal that they had to take early where you were driving. You had an opportunity to get 6. You miss out there. The fact that they couldn't run the ball this week, you could really feel it in those tight spaces when you get into the red zone and you're trying to back Baltimore off of you. So I am interested to see how this offense grows from there. But specific to Jayden Daniels, I mean, outside of that one little note, man, there's really not much to complain about in his game right now. And I would say he's pretty clearly the rookie of the year, unless something significant happens before the end of October.
He did take some hits today, which, I thought he's actually done a much better job of that than I was anticipating based on what we saw at LSU last year. But yeah, this was a game where, early on, Kyle Hamilton, when they were running that bootleg, and Kyle Hamilton was right there and drilled him, and he completing the pass good. Those kinds of hits, obviously, that was just one example. There were some other ones too. But yeah, if you're a Commanders fan, you are having an exciting season. All right.